Hey, what's up? I'm Norris and welcome back to another sew along. Now today I'll be working on my latest Know Me pattern design, which is ME2106, and it is a single pleated baggy trouser. Now if you're new to sewing or just want to brush up on your skills a little bit, you can visit our online sewing and design school, which is sewacademy.com. Go there, take advantage of our free trial, come back and then sew along with me. All right, let's get started. Okay, once again, like I said, we're working on my newest Know Me pattern, which is ME2106, and this is the baggy trouser. Now it's a more than a relaxed fit, it's a little baggier and it's on trend and it's very relaxing, a fun, easy make. So if you look over to the back, obviously you have your fabric suggestions at the top. Go through all those suggestions before you start this project. And then also with notions, you'll need a 1 7-inch zipper, 3/4 of a yard for 1.5 inch elastic. And then also you will need a 3/4 of an inch button. Now make sure you pay very close attention to the sizes. Take your measurements for your chest, waist, and also the hips. And then you go down to finished garment measurements. Now, whatever the closest measurement is down here with the finished garment measurements, you want to make sure you get as close as you can to your particular size. Now, because we have the elastic across the back, you can go a little bigger because you have the elastic to pull, but you don't want to pull too much and have it too bunchy in the back. Okay, so just take that in consideration. Now that we have all the technical stuff out the way, let's go ahead and go through all the pattern pieces that we'll be needing for this particular garment. Okay, so the first pattern piece we'll be using is pattern piece number 1. Now you want to cut 2 of these out on your fabric and make sure you pay close attention to all the markings, all of your notches that you'll be cutting with the pleat lines, because it's going to save you a lot of time trying to figure the pattern pieces out once we start sewing. Next we have pattern piece number 7. Now this is the back. You want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric, and then once again make sure you transfer all of your markings. Now this back welt pocket is only for the right side. You can put it on the left if you want, but it's mainly for the right side, and if you want to cut 2, you can cut 2, but we only have 1 welt pocket on the right side of the back of this particular pant. Next we have pattern piece number 4. Now this is the side front and also the pocket. You want to cut 2 of this out of your lining. And then the same thing for pattern piece number 9. This is your back pocket. You want to cut 1 out of lining because we only have 1 for that back pocket. Next we have pattern piece number 6. Now you want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric, and this is your yoke front. And then over here we have the pocket facing. You want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric and then 2 out of interfacing. Now we have pattern piece number 2. Now this is your right fly. You want to cut 2 out of fabric and then 1 out of interfacing. And then pattern piece number 3. This is your left fly facing. You want to cut 1 of these out of your fabric and 1 out of interfacing. Next we have pattern piece number 8. Now this is the welt. You will cut 1 out of fabric and 1 out of interfacing. And if you decide to do 2 pockets in the back, you want to just double it up, 2 out of fabric and 2 out of interfacing. And then this one right here is the back pocket facing. You want to cut 1 of fabric and 1 of interfacing. And again, if you're cutting 2 back pockets, you want to make sure you double up. Pattern piece number 11. Now these are the carriers, the belt loops. You want to cut 1 of these out of your fabric. Now these next 2, you have your left waistband. You want to cut 1 out of your fabric. And then this one right here is your right waistband. You want to cut 1 of these out of your fabric. Now before I continue, from your markings from the sides that you cut out up into the center front of the left here, you have interfacing to put, and we'll go through those pattern pieces next, but I just want you to see it on the pattern. And then for the right waistband, for your marking of your size up to the center front, you have a placement for your interfacing on this one. Okay, so pattern piece number 15 and pattern piece number 14, these are not pieces that you will be cutting any fabric out of. It's only for left front interfacing, right front interfacing. And like I said, these are the pieces you're going to cut out of interfacing to go to the center front and for the marking of your sizes meet. And then last but not least, we have pattern piece number 16. Now this is your guide for the elastic. No need to cut any fabric or interfacing from this one, only your guide for the elastic. Okay, once we cut all of our pattern pieces out of your fabric, interfacing, and also your lining, we can begin order of construction. Okay, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on our side front and our pocket. So over here we have our yoke, as you can see, I went ahead and did a little serge on the end here. You can also turn it under 3/8 of an inch if you want, but I like a serge finish on here. And we're just going to place it on this side. Now this right here will be the right pocket. So this is how it looks if you want to follow along with the exact same pocket that I'm working on. And then there should be a notch on that side. We want to pin it up. And then also we want to pin across here. So pin it all the way around. Okay, so now on this side right here is the pocket facing, and it goes here on this side. So you want to match this side up. Make sure to match up your markers and your notches. Okay, so now we're just going to head over to the machine. We're going to stitch on this side here to stitch that down, then also here, and then along the outside and the edge here we're going to base. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this over to the machine. Okay, so now we're just going to base around the edges. So you want to change your stitching length to a basting stitch, which is at least a 5.0 millimeter. Okay, so now you want to base the remaining side around the edges the same exact way. Okay, so moving right along, we're back from the machine. We have this based and also stitched onto our lining. So before we attach that to the side of the front piece, you should have 2 notches or whatever markers you use to mark your pleat. Now mine's are right here. So what I'm going to do is the pleat should go outward. So now I'm just going to turn that with the inside over the outside like this, and then that's how you create that pleat. So I'm just going to go ahead and base across the top to keep it in place, and I'm going to come back and we're going to continue. Okay, so moving right along, we have that pleat already ready, and then now what we're going to do is put this out flat. Now the side here where you have the facing, you want to take that and right sides facing. You want to put that over here and match up notch and then pin. Okay, we're going to head over to the machine. We're going to start at that marking right there, that dot, back stitch, secure it, and go all the way up to the top. We're not going to stitch down here. Okay, so let's head to the machine and knock this out. Okay, so while we're still here, you want to go ahead and then make a cut, a little slit to your stitching, but do not go past your stitching. Basically right there where that marking is at. Okay, I made that cut, and then now we're going to do some understitching. So we're going to stay right here. So I have my seam allowance, as you can see, facing the right that way, and then we're going to do some understitching. So basically we're going to be stitching close to that seam but on the facing side. Okay, so we're back from the machine, and then because we have that little slit right there, we're going to take this side and fold it to the inside like this, and then you just want to take the fabrics and then put them wrong sides facing right here, and you're going to get that little cutout, as you can see. So now what we're going to do is lay this flat, take it to your pressing station. We're going to give it a really good press. It looks like this on this side, and then on the other side it looks just like this. Okay, so go ahead and press it, and then once you press it, we're going to go ahead and do a row of top stitching which is a 1/4 inch away from the fold here. So start at the top and then come down until you come maybe like a 1/2 inch past your little cutout area. Okay, so do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, we have that top stitching across here. Now that we have that, I'm gonna flip it so you can only see this side here. So we could just align it like this. I'll turn it back around. So I have a center, my center little notches right here. So we could just align it like this, align the bottom across the inside, and there's a marking for the bottom of the pocket like this. And then we can just stitch starting here all the way till we get here using the seam allowance. But I want to make it a little bit fancier with a French seam. So let's go ahead and then we're going to turn it wrong sides facing like this. Okay, make sure it's in the middle. And I'm gonna go ahead and pin across the bottom real quick. Okay, now this is not in the instructions. This is a different type of finish. So this French seam we're gonna do first, we're gonna head to the machine. Instead of doing the seam allowance, which is 5/8 of an inch, we're gonna do 3/8 of an inch. So head to the machine, we're gonna do 3/8 of an inch all the way down here. Okay, now we're gonna trim this down just 1/8 of an inch to a 1/4 inch, and then we're gonna turn it to the wrong side out. Okay, like I said, I'm just gonna trim this down to 1/4 inch, just a little bit is coming out. And then for that curve here, I'm gonna cut some little curve clips in here. And then like I said, we're gonna turn it with the wrong side out. Get a point turner, point out that corner here. Now head over to your pressing table. Make sure you push all of this out to where you see the seam around the curve. Lay it flat and give it a good press. Okay, as you can see, when it did top stitching across the bottom, we have a nice clean finish. Now you're more than welcome to do it the other way and then serge that, but I wanted to give you a different option for these front pockets, okay? And then now, as you can see, I've already pinned and put stuff in place. But what you're gonna do is, there should be a dot or a marking here. I'll put a notch, and then basically you're just gonna take that in and then line it up and then pin that in place. So now you have that side yoke right there, and then at the bottom you want to align this up here and then pin. So now just head to your machine and then stitch across the top here to base this in place, and then stitch a little bit here to base that side in place as well. Okay, so once you do that, you want to pin and sew your left side the same exact way that we did our right here. Okay, so we're back from the machine. You want to grab both of your front pieces, and we're right sides facing. We're gonna overlap them like this, and we're going to pin only at the big dot. And then you also want to pin where that notch is on the crotch. Okay, so now let's head to the machine, and we're gonna stitch from here to here using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so moving right along, you wanna go ahead and press that seam open here. Just gonna show you right there. Okay, and then on the right side, which is on the left right here, but when you wear them, this will be the right. You wanna take that 3/8 of an inch and turn under and press it. And we're only gonna do that where that small dot that you should have marked only for the right side. So at that dot and then up, you wanna press that 3/8 of an inch. And then now we're gonna go ahead and bring our zipper into play. So we're going to pin down the zipper, but first, Our seam allowance up here at the top is 5/8 of an inch. I like to go 1/8 of an inch below that to 3/4 of an inch. And just so we can give our zipper top enough room when we pull it up to the seam allowance. Okay, so once that get just like this, I'm going to go ahead and start pinning. Okay, now let's head over to the machine and we're going to just base this down all the way until we get to our marking. Okay, so I'm just going to unzip this just a little bit until I have enough room to clear it at the top. So you don't want to get too close to the zipper teeth, just right at 1/8 of an inch. Shouldn't be too bad. And as you can see, I switched over from my regular foot to my zipper foot. Okay, so we're back from the machine. We have this base down to the right side of our pants. And then now we're gonna take our right fly facing, which is here, right side's facing. And then one should be interface. I'm gonna go ahead and pin. Okay, now on this side here where the curve is, we're gonna stitch starting here and go all the way up to the top using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, we're back from the machine. I'm gonna go ahead and trim this down just a little bit, not too much. Just trim it down 1/8 of an inch here, and then we can take a little bit more around that curve. And now we're gonna turn it right side out, just like this. Make sure you give it a really good press. And then on this raw edge side here, I'm just going to serge this side after I press it. So do that, come back, and we're gonna attach it to our pants. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, I gave it a good press, and then I serged on this side here. And I'm just going to place this to the back, making sure that that edge here matches up with the edge of the zipper tape, okay? So that's how you know where to put it on the back side. Just feel for it, and then we're going to pin. Now let's go ahead and head over to the machine, and instead of basting this time, we're going to stitch and follow that basting stitch all the way until we get to the bottom. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, we have the stitching here, and our right facing, fly facing is on, and now we're gonna focus on the left one. Now I went ahead and trimmed off about 1/2 inch from this side here, and I did a serge on this side. Now if you don't want to trim it off, you can tuck that raw edge along this side. Just make sure you do some gathering or some around that curve so it can lay flat. Okay, so now right side's facing, there's a double notch. We're going to match it up with this side, and then we're going to pin along this side until we get to our dot. Okay, so now we're going to start at our dot, and we're going to go all the way up until we get to the top. Also, while we're here, we can do some under stitching. So I'm just going to turn this way. And then the same as we did before. Okay, so we're back from the machine. I'm just gonna trim this down to maybe 3/8 of an inch. And then now we're just going to turn it to the inside. Turn this side up. And then we're just gonna turn this side to the inside. And then now head over to your pressing table and make sure you give this a really good press. Then come back and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the pressing station. As you can see, we gave it a really good press. It's laying flat. And then now pay very close attention to this next couple steps. Okay,
So you want to make sure everything is laying flat here in the center of the crotch right there. And then we're just going to make sure that everything is aligned up top, and then we have that nice little overlay, that 3/8 of an inch overlay. So what I'm going to do is pin through all thicknesses right here, just like this. So that allows me to flip this like this and the front still be intact. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it one more flip like this, where we can visually see that zipper tape here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add some more pins just right here. And then for the flap on the other side, we're just going to pin that to the right side, just so we can have it out the way. It's not going to stay like this. So once I pin on this side, it's out the way here. Okay, so now looking at this side, we're going to stitch all the way up until we get to the top. Now it's going to be difficult once we get up here, but I'm going to undo this pin so I can zip down to finish up the top. Okay, so let's head to the machine. Okay, as you can see right here, I'm just going to go straight up. So like I said, I'm going to undo this pin up here at the top just so I can zip this down. So you want to make sure you keep that same distance to make sure it's still aligned. Okay, so now looking at this side, so I'm going to keep this side pinned back on this side here, and I'm just going to take these out. Zip that back up. Okay, so now we're going to do the top stitching along our left side, which is on the right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pin through both levels here so we can catch that fold underneath or that raw edge underneath, and we're gonna do that all the way down. Okay, so you can get a chalk marker and you can put your lines here. You can use this portion if you want to remember the shape, but I can actually feel mine underneath, and I'm just going to follow that. Okay, so let's head to the machine. We're going to start here in the center, and then we're going to work our way up in top stitch. Okay, so we're going to start in the center. So if you got bigger zipper teeth, you might want to just mechanically wheel this past the zipper. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, we did our stitching on this side. Let me go ahead and take these pins out over here, and then that's going to allow that to fold back just like this. And then now we just lay it down, give it a good press, and it should be just like this. Okay, open it up. Nice working zipper front. One last thing, you can fold it up to the bottom and then just tack down this little, right where that little curve is, and that'll allow it not to open all the way when we open up the zipper here. Okay, and then now we're just going to go ahead and put this to the side, and we're going to work on our back and start our darts and then also our welt pocket. Okay, so we're working on our back, and this is the right back where we have that pocket placement. Now before I move forward with making the welt pocket, we do have to do the dart, but also I put a piece of interfacing just to make the fabric a little bit more stable, because we will be cutting into this soon. So you should know how to make darts. You just want to make sure you put your dart lines and pin. Remember, you back stitch at the beginning, but not at the end of the dart, because you want to tie off that knot. Okay. So head to the machine, back stitch at the beginning, and then sew off where you see that dot, and then pull your threads and then tie a knot. Come back and then we'll continue and work on the welt pocket. Okay, so moving right along, as you can see, I did that dart. I pressed it towards the inside. You can press your darts outward or inward, just depends on your preference. And also, depending on how the dart is made, you can tell which direction you should be pressing it, because it'll look kind of funny during one way. So now let's go ahead and prep our pocket so we can attach it to the back piece. So moving right along, I just wanted to let you know that the back facing for this pattern, you see 2 dots here at the bottom of the piece. It's kind of turned upside down because these placements should be at the top. So I have markers here. So those placements should be right where the markers are on the lining piece. Now, I didn't do any dots here. I did notches. So my dots should be right where my notches are. So I should line these dots up right where that marking is. Okay. So if you do the bottom, it's going to be way too high if you try to match those. So just turn it upside down. It don't matter whether it's this way or that way. I just wanted you to put it in the right place, because when we actually make the pocket, when you open it up, you'll have that facing piece and it won't be up here. Okay. So let's go ahead and just pin this in place. Okay, so just head to the machine. We're just gonna do 2 straight stitches, one here across the top and then one here across the bottom. So to do that, come back and we can continue. Okay, so I'm back from the machine, moving right along. As you can see, we put that back facing onto the back. And just so you know, the top should have a little curve and then the bottom should be flat like this. So next, you want to take your welt and then just fold it in half. Give it a good press. Obviously, this should be interfaced as well. And then now I'm going to take the bottom here, the flat end, turn it upside down, and I'm just going to align it flush with the top here. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and pin. Okay. You might not see it, but I put my 2 dots where I should start and stop. And then I have a stitching line. Now this stitching line, I'm going to put here to attach both of these together, but then also to have a guideline once I put them on the pant piece. So let's go ahead to the machine. We're gonna base starting on 1 dot to the other dot. Okay, now that we have that basing stitch there, we have a guideline to match up with the bottom of the bounding box. Now this is the top line, this is the bottom line. We're only gonna match up that bottom. So grab your pins. And what I like to do first is put the pin right where that dot is, where my stitching is. And then I take that pin and I put it through where it's supposed to be. That way it's in the exact same spot. Okay. And then I fold up to make sure that it stays exactly where it's supposed to be. Now that we have it lined up, let's go back and follow that basing guideline, because we know that it matches up with the line underneath. So let's go ahead and stitch this down this time. Okay, so we're back from the machine. Now I'm about to trim this right here off at least by half. Okay, so now I got to make a little slit in the center like this. And then I'm gonna cut down till I get to the side of that binding box. but I'm gonna stop 5/8 of an inch before I get there. Okay, and then once I'm here, I can go ahead and make a diagonally cut to my stitching. Now, sometimes when you're sewing, your fabric shifts a little bit. You might not be exactly, your stitching might not end or stop exactly where your marking is. So if it's not where your marking is, you want to go to your stitching, because that's going to make the difference when it comes to the details of how this welt pocket is built. Now, if you go to the marking in your stitching is not there, you're going to have some issues. So you want to cut to your stitching. And then at the top, you want to cut exactly where you stopped down here. So if you didn't cut to your marking and to your stitching, you want to cut diagonally at the top in the exact same space that you did at the bottom. Okay, now let's go to the other side. Okay, so it should look like this. You should have two triangles. And now we're just gonna we're gonna tuck all of this to the inside, laying everything flat, and then make sure you take the end of your welt and tuck that in as well. Okay, and you'll see this starting to form a little bit. And then now go ahead and give this a really good press, making sure those triangles are tucked in as well, that you don't see them. And then also the top, you want to turn that under, and your guide should be that chalk line or whatever marker that you did for the box. Turn that under and give that a good press as well. Okay, so press it, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so once you give it a good press, you can see it take shape. The top is tucked under and is really pressed here. So next what we're going to do is turn it upside down so you can see the inside. So now I'm going to fold at the fold line. I put a little notch to indicate where my fold line is, and I'm gonna go ahead and pin. Now I'm not gonna do French seams on this one because I want to make it easier for you. You could just finish these seams off with a serge or peak and shears or zigzag stitch, depending on what your method is. Okay, so I'm gonna turn it right sides facing up, but when we get to the machine, I'm gonna turn back just this side. Now here is where we're going to make sure that we have that triangle out, and we're gonna start here, back stitch, and go all the way down till we get to the bottom, and then we're gonna flip back this way and do the same exact thing, making sure that triangle is out and we secure those ends. All right, so let's head to the machine and go down both sides. Okay, so we're gonna start at the top of the triangle right here, and then we're gonna stitch our very across end up here and go all the way down using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now, if your fabric might have shifted anything and 5/8 of an inch is not where this is, you want to put the priority on going across your triangle first, and then once you come down, you can adjust to 5/8 of an inch if you're not directly on it. Okay, I'm just gonna spin this around because it's important to show both sides, both angles. So we're gonna be starting from the bottom. Like I said again, if you have to go more than 5/8, a little bit less than 5/8, just to go across this triangle here at this exact spot, you want to put priority here. Secured in. Now, while we're still here, is laying flat, we want to secure the top of the welt. the fold here up top should be right up against the top of the welt. So we're gonna head over to the table and show you how to secure it and pin it, and we're gonna come back to secure the top. Okay, so the best way to secure and pin this right here is you just want to fold this back, and we're going to put this pin right where that crease is of that fold. Okay, and we're gonna do it all the way to the very end where that corner is. Okay, like that. So once you fold it up, where I have it pinned, you will see it stops right at the top of that welt. Okay, so make sure you don't pin the actual top of the welt now. And notice that I have the pins vertical, so when you're at the machine, you can just pull them out the way. So let's go ahead and just stitch this down. Okay, as you can see, I'm back from the machine. I did my serge on both sides, and then I also based across the top. Now I left this just like this, just so I can show you things happen, fabric shifts, and sometimes it might not align up exactly how it's supposed to be. But I have a finished, well-made welt pocket. The ends are secured, the top is secured, and it looks amazing on the inside. So only thing I'm just gonna do is just trim off this little extra at the top. Okay. And now we're going to go ahead and attach our back and our fronts at the inside seam and the outside seam. Okay, so moving right along, I took my back and laid it across my front, right sides facing. And I'm just going to do one pant leg at a time. So we're going to go ahead and pin the inside seam. Make sure that you match all your notches and pin all the way down to the hem. Now that I have the inside seam pinned, you want to go to the machine. We're going to stitch 5/8 of an inch, starting at the crotch all the way down to the hem. And I've already pinned the outside seam, so you want to do that as well. Once you do this one, you want to stitch all the way down 5/8 of an inch down to the hem. Okay. Now, once we do this one pant leg, we're going to do the other one the same exact way. So now let's head to the machine. Okay, so now you want to do the outside seam the same exact way. Okay, so we're back from the machine. We have our inside seams and our outside seams done. The only thing we have to do is finish out this center seam here from the crotch all the way to the back seam. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and cut into the front, that front seam. Now you have, now you press it open, but you really don't want to press open from the pocket up because it's too thick of a seam. So you just want to press the front all the way to the back. Okay, so that pocket seam here on the side seam, it should be pressed to the back. So we just want to make a little cut into that one side so it lays open here. Okay, and then we can continue pressing that towards the back. Make sure I cut it. Don't cut through your stitching now. Okay, and then the same with the other side. Okay, now that presses open, and you're able to press this right here towards the back. So now once you do that, you want to go ahead and take your center crotch seam. We're going to pin there first. There's a notch here. Okay, so we're going to start here at the top, stitch all the way down, go through that seam, and we're going to come and stop where we finished that seam at the beginning. All right, so you just want to go into that continued stitching, and then you can cut and break your threads. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, that back seam is done. Let me turn it on this side. Now here, you want to make a little slit so you can open this seam open. And then after you do that, give it a good press. I'm just going to turn it right side out so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so now we can go ahead and work on our belt loops and then our waistband, and then we can just get ready to finish these pants up. Okay, so moving right along, we're going to work on the belt loops. Now we have two long ends here. We're going to take those raw edge and then we're going to bring them to the middle. Okay, just like that. We're going to bring them to the middle, give it a good press, and then once it lays flat, we're going to take that and then just fold it in half. So it'll look basically like this. Okay, so let's go ahead, bring them in the middle, press, and then press them in half, and then come back and we'll continue. Okay, as you can see, I went ahead and pressed them inward and then press them like this. And I put pins just to keep mine close together because my fabric doesn't really press very well. So I'm about to edge stitch this one side closed, and then I'm going to stitch on the other side. Okay, just like this, and then now you want to edge stitch the other side the same exact way. Okay, so I'm back from the machine. As you can see, I have my 2 rows of stitching on both edges. And then now we're just going to measure out 3 5/8 of an inch. And we're gonna cut. So once you get that first one, you can use that one as a guide. And we're gonna be making 5 different belt loops or carriers, whichever you want to call it. Okay, so now let's take these and start placing them on our pants. So there should be markings, one right here where the fold of that pleat is. So you just want to take it and then just pin. Then we turn to the back. There should be 2 placements back here. And then the very last one is on that center back seam. Okay, now head to the machine and just tack these down and then come back and we'll continue. Now that we have all our belt loops tacked down, we're gonna put our pants to the side for just a moment. We're gonna focus on our waistband. Now the longer one is for the right side, and then the shorter one, as you can see right here, is for the left. So we're gonna turn them right sides facing, and obviously the fronts of them both are interfaced. We notice that there's a notch. So you want to pin at that notch first. So go ahead and stitch across this end here using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then come back and we'll continue. Okay, so moving right along, I went ahead and pressed that seam open. Now this is the left side and it's on the left, and this is the right side and it's on the right. The right is just a tad bit longer than the left side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my pants over. You want to unzip them in the front, and we're going to look at them in the back. So this is the right side, this is the left side. Now before we start pinning this to the top, I want you to go to the pressing table, and on the bottom side, we're going to press up a 1/2 inch all the way till we get to the other end. Okay, so give it a good press, 1/2 inch on the bottom, come back and we'll continue. Okay, so moving right along, as you can see, we have it pressed across the bottom. And then now we're just going to pin the top. Make sure to match all of your notches and your markings. Okay, now when you get to the end, it's supposed to extend 5/8 of an inch. So you don't want to match it up. It's supposed to be a little bit longer. And then also the same thing on the left side. You want to make sure it extends 5/8 of an inch, and then you can pin Okay, so now we're going to start on one side and we're going to stitch all the way until we get to the other side using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we back from the machine. I went ahead and pressed my seams up, and then I just trimmed them down just a little bit. Next, we're gonna fold it down onto itself just like this, making sure that we cover that seam right there, just under 1/8 of an inch. And then we're just gonna pin. Okay, so let's head to the machine and we're going to stitch both sides down. Okay, so I'm gonna stitch it where we're looking at the inside of the pants. And as you can see, we have the other side just past that seam allowance. And then we're just going to stitch this down 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so you want to stitch the other side down the same exact way. Okay, so now I'm just going to trim a little bit. So I'm gonna trim diagonally like this. So I'm gonna start wider at the bottom and then trim in a little bit closer to that corner. Then I'm gonna grab my point turner. And then we're just going to give this a really good press. And now you can see that waistband is taking shape. Okay, so now you want to just give it a good press, and we're about 1/8 of an inch under the seam allowance on the inside here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin, making sure that we catch that fold underneath, which is right here. Okay, just like that. So go ahead and continue pinning all the way until we get to the other side. Okay, so I have it all pinned all the way around. As you can see, the inside, we have that fold line just under that seam. And then now what we're gonna do is we're gonna head to the machine. We're gonna start on one end and we're just going to stitch in the ditch, basically stitching right in between that seam, catching the fold underneath. Now before we stitch all the way around, I do want to note that we're going to keep at least 1 to 1.5 inch opening at both side seams. Now this is going to allow us to put the elastic in, so I just want to make that note. Stop about 3/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch on both sides of that side seam. So I just cut my threads. I'm just going to move over about 1.5 inches, just give myself plenty of room. And then now we're just going to continue until we get to the other side seam. Okay, so we're going to move over and continue on the other side. Okay, so we're back from the machine. You can look and see that we have it nicely finished on that inside because we stitched in the ditch. And then before we go put our elastic in, we want to just go ahead and turn under 1/2 inch on the belt loop, and then we're just going to place it just like this. And I just want you to tack it down by edge stitching it as close as you can to the edge. Okay, now when it comes to the back, I want you to be very careful because we do have to insert our elastic. So when you turn under on the back belt loops, you want to make sure you're as close as you can to that edge as possible, just so we don't take up too much space for our elastic. So go ahead and stitch down all of the belt loops, come back, and we can insert our elastic. Okay, I'm back from the machine. As you can see, our belt loops are all attached at the top, and then you can just clip the allowance underneath down to like 1/4 inch. So now you want to grab a safety pin, and we're going to insert one of our elastics through one of the openings So the opening where you had that side seam, we're just gonna push it through until we get to the other side, making sure we don't slip this all the way through the other end. Okay, so once we get to the other side, we're gonna open this up and we're going to go ahead and secure one side, because the only thing we have to do is pull the elastic on the other side to make adjustments. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna tuck that allowance in, make sure you hold it, don't let it snap back. And we want it to be 5/8 of an inch past the side seam right here. So the side seam is here, and if I feel the end of my elastic is right here. Okay, so now I'm gonna hold this. Let me go ahead and pin it in place. I want to pin this so it don't move. Now I head to the machine and I'm just going to stitch down here. I'm gonna follow that side seam and go right up to the end of the waistband here, just to secure that one side. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, we stitched down that one side seam. And then now what we're gonna do is you wanna go ahead and zip these, put them on, zip them up, pin the front after you have them zipped up when you have them on. And then you want to just make some adjustments. Hold this side right here, give yourself some room, pull if you need to, let it loose if you need to. And then once you get to a point where it fits, you want to cut it off with space for 5/8 of an inch. So I've already put mine on, made my adjustments. So now I'm just going to take this, tuck it inside here. Make sure that I'm past that seam, that side seam. Okay. So my side seam is right here, and my elastic end is here. So that's perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin this. Now I'm gonna head to the machine and stitch across this to secure this side of the waistband. Okay, so we're back from the machine. We went ahead and secured that other side where the elastic is on that side seam. And then you wanna go ahead and also stitch in the ditch right here where we had that opening. I've already secured that side closed, and also this side as well. You want to make sure to serge around the bottom of your hem and then fold up and then stitch your hem. And once you give it a good press, you're all done.
All right, congratulations, you're all done. Now, I hope you enjoyed this so long, and remember to tag me on all socials so I can see your amazing makes at Norris Dancer Forward, and I will see you in the next so long.